What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Take 3 podcast. My name is Brendan. As always, I'm joined by my guy, Alex, here on a Thursday afternoon to talk a little AFC West football. It's our final division preview of 2022. It's crazy kind of how fast the past month and a half, 2 months went, really, when you're doing one of these a week and just keeping it going. I mean, this is a super interesting division as it enters 2022 because for one, every team, you can make a case really for each of these teams that they could win the division. And it's just a highly stacked division. When you look at Russell Wilson just re-ing up with the Broncos, massive deal. Him just getting traded there puts them straight in Super Bowl talks. Then obviously you have the Chiefs still with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. The Chargers obviously disappointing last year, but when you got Justin Herbert and they kind of went out, spent the money, built the roster back up, they're in a good spot going into this year. And then you got the Raiders, Derek Carr's read up, Darren Waller contract situation. They kind of got to figure that out. We'll get into that. They go out, get Chandler Jones, the big one. They bring in Devontae Adams. So a lot of big moves for these teams. A lot of competitive football is going to be played in the AFC West this year. How are you feeling about the AFC West?
Yeah, super excited. 1 week out from football, and we're talking about the best division in football. Every team is super good. It's going to be hard to figure out who actually wins this division. This is the one that definitely feels like a coin flip because top to bottom, they're all really good teams and they're all good quarterbacks. So I'm excited to dive in and kind of figure out who we're leaning towards.
For sure. This division literally feels like a bloodbath. Like these teams are going to beat the piss out of each other when they play. Hopefully, at least, like I hope we don't get like shitty games right on paper. You think it's going to be, this will be great matchups. And then you see like 52-10 happens out of the blue. And it's like, shit, where'd that happen? But let's jump right into it. Obviously, the Denver Broncos are on the screen. We're going to cover them first. There are a couple of big additions. Obviously, I mentioned Russell Wilson, who just signed a 5-year extension with them. He got the bag. Congrats to them. Seems like a good dude. Another big move on the Broncos side, head coach. They went with Nathaniel Hackett, offensive coordinator from the Packers. That kind of drug Aaron Rodgers rumors. That never came to fruition. But we'll see what Hackett has. He was kind of highly regarded leaving Green Bay. On the offensive side, they come back with the same kind of trio of wide receivers. Obviously, Tim Patrick went down with a torn ACL, but they still have Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler. There is kind of some injury concerns obviously out there. Sutton was already previously hurt. All three of these guys have been hurt in the past. So I kind of worry depth behind those three is also shaky. We'll get into it. O-line, it's all right. I mean, it's not the greatest, but when you have Russell Wilson who can kind of extend and make plays, kind of makes life easier in some sense. Obviously, Noah Fant's out. They go with Albert O. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name. Wild name. He seems to slot in. And then there's another guy not even on the depth chart. It was like Greg Dursich or something. He was figured into play as well for the tight end role if Alberto can't get the job done. Running backs, 2 solid backs. I mean, getting Melvin Gordon back was big for them, I'd say. You roll him with Javonte Williams for another year, and you got it going in the backfield. And then obviously pass rushers look solid. I kind of worry about their defensive tackles. The nose tackles kind of concern me with the run, but Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb, if they stay healthy, should be able to get to the quarterback. And the secondary is pretty good. Justin Simmons, Pat Surtain, Ronald Darby's out there, Kawan Williams, they snagged from San Fran. So that was a mouthful. How do you feel about the Broncos entering 2022? And I'll just drop the first question. Can Russell Wilson return to that MVP level and carry this team to the Super Bowl or in a deep playoff run? It's kind of why they went out and got him, right?
Yeah, because Denver definitely felt like they were a quarterback away. They had the number 3 defense in total scoring last year. I'm very high on their defensive unit. I absolutely love their secondary. Justin Simmons, Pat Surtain, Ronald Darby. I like that back end a lot. And you already mentioned Randy Gregory, Bradley Chubb. So I love that defensive unit. New head coach, new quarterback, Russell Wilson. I think there's going to be definitely some learning curves at the beginning. Like there might be times where they don't look real polished or great. I think that's just because, they're new, bunch of new guys getting together, but I'm kind of sold so far. Like everything on paper is pointing towards a really good season. I think Cortland Sutton's going to have a really good year with Russell Wilson throwing him the ball. And the only thing that really worries me about this Denver offense is their offensive line a little bit. I like Garrett Bowles. I like Quinn at right guard. And then right tackle, it seems as of right now, Billy Turner won the job. It was definitely a battle with Calvin Anderson. So you got to keep an eye on that. So if they can get consistent offensive line play, I think it will be improved from those horrible Seattle offensive lines that Russ is used to, and Russ is very mobile. So he's really the perfect quarterback to stick behind that. And I expect Nathaniel Hackett to he realizes that that is his weakest part of the ball offensively is going to be the offensive line. So I think he can do call certain plays and help out the offensive line. And then you have Russ. So which brings me back to the actual question. I think it's all going to come down to Russell, and I think he's going to play really well. I think he's going to return to form. Really good weapons. I like Nathaniel Hackett. We'll see how they bode together, and I think he's going to be able to call plays and like kind of cover up what is probably the weakest part, the offensive line. But I fully expect Russell to return to form, and we see a pretty damn good Denver offense this year.
Yeah, for sure. The O-line is definitely on the weaker side when you get your starting right tackle kind of battling for a job and barely snagging that job. It does concern me up front. But as you mentioned, Russell Wilson does have the legs to create things. Honestly, I mean, I think Russell Wilson, yeah, he could go out and return to form. I don't think he's going to get back to MVP level. I think he'll be good enough. He'll look better than he kind of did behind those really shitty O-lines in Seattle with the defensive head coach. My thing about Nathaniel Hackett is I just don't know what he brings to the table, right? When he's there with LaFleur in Green Bay, we don't know. He's kind of one of those guys. We don't know how much say he had on that scheme and kind of what he did. So for me to just kind of jump now and be like, yeah, his scheme's going to be this and that. They're kind of a wait and see team, right? I'm excited to watch them week one to see how he's going to call plays, what their offense is going to look like, how he's going to use the running backs, how he's going to mask up the O-line. What is he going to do with the receivers, right? You got three good receivers. How is he going to spread the ball? There's a lot of questions, more questions, honestly, around Nathaniel Hackett and kind of what his offense and his scheme is going to look like compared to the questions that I have about Russell Wilson, because I think Russell Wilson truly was kind of checked out in Seattle and was kind of over Seattle, maybe dating back 2 years ago. Definitely last year, I'd say he was kind of had enough. So I think he's going to be reinvigorated. Obviously, when he gets paid, he's going to come out and do everything he can. But it all comes down to kind of what does Nathaniel Hackett bring to the table for me. So I'm going to go. I don't think Russell Wilson will return to MVP level, but he's going to have a pretty damn good season, I would say, just because he seems fully invested in Denver.
Yeah, he's excited to be there. I think you're 100% correct. He was burnt out with Pete Carroll, that Seattle organization, and I think the organization felt like they were much better than they actually were the last few years.
Yeah, the Seattle thing kind of ran its course, and now he gets to do something fresh. And it's kind of, I mean, the spotlight's going to be on him, right? So that we're going to be looking for W's out of Russell Wilson in any way, shape, or form, right? They're not going to be calling out Nathaniel Hackett if they have a bad week. It's going to be why didn't Russell Wilson do this on a week to week basis? But I'm interested to see how the old offense, how it unfolds, how they mess that line up. Second question when it comes in regards to the Broncos is their pass rush, right? They go out, they steal Randy Gregory essentially, right? There was a handshake agreement, him and the Cowboys. It was 5 years, 70, right? I think it was almost the same exact deal or something. Maybe some guaranteed money flip-flop that wasn't there. And then on a whim, it goes Randy Gregory's going to Denver. So that's a big get for them if he can be consistent and kind of stay on the field. And then obviously you pair him with Bradley Chubb. So is their pass rush going to be good enough, right? Bradley Chubb kind of has his injury concern. Randy Gregory has had his concerns in the past as well. Is their pass rush going to be good enough even to win this division, let alone, I won't even go big picture AFC. I mean, winning this division damn near feels like winning the AFC. That's how stacked it is. But I mean, you know what you're dealing with in this division when you got to face Derek Carr, Herbert, and Patrick Mahomes. You got to face those guys twice a season. So you got to be able to get out. You got to be able to get after them. Got to be able to disrupt the quarterback. Is that pass rush going to be good enough?
I think they're going to be one of the best defensive units in the league. And for that reason, I think they are going to be good enough. And the additions you just said, Randy Gregory, Bradley Chubb, they're going to get after the quarterback. But I think the real strength here is like the back end of this defense, the secondary. And I think there's going to be times where the secondary holds their own longer than like most secondaries would, which in turn, most of the time you see the pass rush by time for the secondary. I think we could see it vice versa this time around a little bit with this Denver team that the secondary buys a little time for the pass rush. And I think there's times where the pass rush is just going to get through because they have really good, they have a couple really good pass rushers. But yeah, I really like this defensive unit for Denver. And I think the pass rush will be good enough. And I think it's going to stem from that secondary. I think they have a chance to have like a pretty special secondary.
Yeah, I think it could be good enough if they can stay on the field. Bradley Chubb kind of I loved him when they initially drafted him. I was like, it's a hell of a pick, but then he's kind of hurt and then hurt again or hurt again, hurt again, and then the production's kind of not where you'd want it to be. So I need to see, can he stay on the field for one before I push all my chips into the middle. I definitely like the Randy Gregory snag because it kind of frees up Bradley Chubb, right? When you have two guys that can really beat people off the edge, offensive lines, they're not going to be able to double team. They're not going to be able to do that type of stuff. But I don't know. I mean, I do like the secondary, right? If we're going just with the secondary, can they mask it up? Yeah. I mean, Pat Surtain, he's a stud. Ronald Darby, he's good enough. I mean, he's kind of on the back end. Justin Simmons, I like him at safety. So, I mean, I'm not going to go crazy enough to say I think the pass rush will be good enough at times. I don't know if it's going to be able to keep up for an entire season because I simply don't know if Bradley Chubb's going to be able to play an entire season. And then when you go behind and look at the depth behind him, I'm not too excited with what's behind him. I mean, we've seen year to year basis with him that it's kind of the same story. So, I mean, if those two guys can stay healthy, they're a force to be reckoned with when you pair it with that secondary. But when it comes down to can Bradley Chubb stay on the field, who knows? So I think they'll be good enough at times, but I don't know for 17 games if they'll be there, at least for me. Last question that I have goes back to basically when I broke down the Broncos and it's going to go back to their wide receiver core. Are you concerned that their wide receiver core might not be enough over the course of an entire year when you look at Cortland Sutton's had his injury issues. Jerry Jeudy's obviously had his. KJ Hamler, I believe he missed his rookie year with an injury. So are you worried that the depth might not be there, right? If one of those guys goes down, you can see on the screen who you're tossing them behind. Tim Patrick, obviously they lost him for the year with a torn ACL. That kind of hurts them depth-wise. But when you look at 17-game season, I mean, somebody's bound to get banged up at some point out there. So does the depth at wide receiver concern you for the Broncos?
So the depth at wide receiver honestly definitely concerns me. If they still had Tim Patrick, less so. He was a very good receiver. Obviously, that's a big loss. Their tight ends are good, not great. They do have two running backs, which can help offensively. You can get creative, use them as pass catchers. The thing that gives me confidence if they do have an injury is that Russell Wilson has had a lot of receivers that weren't very good, and Russell made them look pretty good on Sundays. So you always have that. So like now they have a future Hall of Famer that can elevate their guys. But the depth does worry me. I think they have enough talent when healthy. I think Cortland Sutton is on the verge of being a star. We know how good Jerry Jeudy is. KJ Hamler is very good as well. So they definitely have enough talent, but the depth scares me. Russell Wilson's good enough to elevate certain guys for a couple Sundays, but if they get big injuries and they're out for long periods of time, it's definitely going to be an issue.
Yep. The three wide receivers. I mean, I love them on paper. If you can turn injuries off like it's Madden, then I'm rolling with it and I have no issues at all. But yeah, the three of them over the course with their histories, it does concern me paired with that O-line, right? If you start dropping wide receivers, plus the O-line's kind of not the greatest in the world. Obviously, Russell Wilson has experience playing with bad O-lines, but then it could mount up. So the three of them, it does concern me. I mean, maybe they go out and make a trade deadline play for a wide receiver. Maybe there's plenty of wide receivers out there. They could also go to free agency at some point and, snag up a guy just for a little bit of depth. But those three on the fray, it does concern me, especially in a highly competitive division and a highly competitive conference as a whole, as the AFC is. But I mean, Russell Wilson, you do trust him to bring guys up. I just don't know. I mean, the Tyree Cleveland's never seen him. Jalen Virgil, never seen him. Montreal Washington, another guy I've never seen. So it's hard to say. I mean, the three at the top, studs, but with their history, I'm gonna bet. I mean, if there was odds on it, I guarantee you one of them is going to go down at some point. Hopefully not season long, right? Because I'd like to see them at full strength, but a hamstring, something, a weird injury to where somebody else is going to have to step up, and you just can't say that any of the three guys behind them are going to do that, even with Russell Wilson, right? Even with the two running backs. But I mean, we'll see how it plays out, right? That's kind of why the games are played on Sunday. Maybe all three of them for once they stay healthy and it shocks us all and we look like idiots sitting here right now saying, that the three guys did concern us.
Yeah, and it's like as good as Denver's offense has the ability to be, it does feel kind of fragile on paper when you look at like some question marks on the offensive line already, the lack of receiver depth, and the tight ends are good, not great. Yeah, there's definitely a version where the offense is not as good as we think it is, but I mean, if they can stay healthy, it's very good. The depth as a whole does concern me.
Yeah, they got a lot out there. Well, that's all I got for the Broncos. Obviously, they went 7-10 last year. A little different story when you got the Drew Locks playing quarterback and Teddy Bridgewater playing quarterback. You got Russell Wilson coming in. The hype around the team goes up. When I went through their schedule, I had the Broncos going 10-7. It's a little bit right on line with what DraftKings had them at. I just think, the kind of depth concerns, and then Russell Wilson, Nathaniel Hackett, that duo, how that'll work out, kind of first year things. We just don't know. So I kind of went on the conservative side. 10 wins should be good enough to get them into the playoffs. So I wish that my season-long prediction thing saved, but it didn't. But 10-7, I believe that should snag them a wild card slot for sure.
Yeah, so when I did the records, I'm pretty high on all these teams in the division. I think by the time it turns out, they're not all going to finish with these wins that high. But as of right now, I have them all going 3-3 in the division and then just beating up on the rest of the AFC. So that brings me to the Denver Broncos. I have going 12-5 and not winning the division at 12-5, but making the playoffs for sure.
12 wins. He's got them going big. That means the guys are staying healthy. That means the O-line's staying healthy. That means the defense is firing, and your wide receivers are they've got to stay healthy. But yeah, let's keep it moving. Next team on the docket in the AFC West, we're going to jump out to the Las Vegas Raiders. They went obviously 10-7 last year with the interim coach. I forget his name, but the interim coach did a hell of a job keeping the team motivated. Derek Carr kind of did a hell of a job down the stretch. 10-7, snagged them a wild card slot. 10-7, but they go with Josh McDaniels. They finally Josh McDaniels finally leaves New England. Didn't spurn them like he did the Colts. But yeah, when you look at the Raiders, they bring in Devontae Adams, as I mentioned off the top. They still have Hunter Renfrow, who is a solid slot guy. That second wide receiver on the outside, Mac Hollins, that's kind of concerning. I've seen enough of Mac Hollins in Philly. He made one solid catch for us, a hell of a job. But that's it. Their O-line as well is kind of meh. Obviously, Richie Incognito retired, and then they just let go of Alex Leatherwood. He kind of sucks. I mean, maybe their line gets better now that he's gone, right? That's the crazy part. Obviously, quarterback Derek Carr, running backs Josh Jacobs and Zamir White. They did cut Kenyon Drake, who went to Baltimore. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they went out, got Chandler Jones this offseason to pair him with Max Crosby on the outside. That's two solid edge rushers. I love that. You got two guys that can get to the quarterback. In a division in a conference where you're going to have to get to the quarterback. Secondary, not the greatest. That concerns me for sure. So, I mean, when you look at, I didn't even mention Darren Waller as well. But when you look at the Raiders, what are you thinking about with the Raiders entering 2022?
Yeah, so I look at this Las Vegas Raiders team. I think with Josh McDaniels at the helm, you add Devontae Adams, they have a real chance to be better than they were last year. It just feels like an uphill battle. Like it feels like it's going to be tough just because of the division they play in. I love their offense. I think they could have, on paper, they could have the best passing offense in the league. You have Darren Waller, Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow. You kind of made a comment about it already. Mac Hollins being a starter makes me nervous. I don't like the receiver depth at all. And then the real thing for me, is the defense. They were 26 out of 32 in scoring defense last year. I definitely think they're improved, but they gave up a lot of points. They feel like a bend not break type defense that makes big plays at certain moments, but it's going to be hard to win that way when you're in the AFC West. I just kind of raved about the Broncos defense. I feel a similar way about the Chargers, and we'll get there. And I kind of think that's the difference here. One, it's wild to say because Derek Carr is a very good quarterback above average, but he's the worst quarterback in the division. And it's hard to win the division when you have the worst quarterback. All the offenses are going to be good. I'm just kind of worried about that Raiders defense. They're bend, don't break. And I don't know if they're good enough to get the job done.
Yeah, we'll get to the defense in a couple minutes. That's definitely a concern entering this year, kind of in a couple of spots that I want to point out in a couple of minutes. First question though for the Raiders is: does it concern you that they didn't get or have not got a deal done with Darren Waller yet? Obviously, they read up Derek Carr, got his deal done. They went out, traded for Devontae Adams, got him his money, and then you have Darren Waller who's kind of been playing there, right, and been doing his thing, balling out with Derek Carr, and he's kind of sitting there saying, "Where the hell's my money?" Obviously, I believe he just hired a new agent as well. So he's kind of trying to push that. But are you concerned entering this year that they kind of didn't get a deal done with him? It always worries me when a guy's that good that maybe, he won't play as hard. He'll pull up on a couple ones, not be willing to go over the middle and get cracked because he hasn't got paid, right? So does it concern you that they haven't paid Darren Waller yet?
Um, it does concern me, but not as much as a normal situation. And when I'm saying like that, you already kind of mentioned that he got a new agent, and his old group that represented him, they are the ones that really wanted him to hold out from training camp, don't play till you get the contract. Darren Waller seems all in on this Raiders team. I think he's very excited to be a part of this offense, this new coaching staff, this new year. They just made the playoffs, right? They were extremely close to beating the AFC representative last year. That game came down all the way to the end. So I think Darren Waller didn't want to hold out at all. I think that was the old group. Now he's got a new agent. It is concerning that he doesn't have a deal done going into the season. Like, you always would rather them be locked up and secure. So that is concerning, but I'm not that concerned about it because I think Darren Waller really wants to be there. He wants to be a Raider. I think he's excited about everything going on for this upcoming year. And the agent switch, I think, is a big deal because he wasn't willing to hold out. I don't think he was a fan of that idea at all.
Nah, he doesn't seem like that type of guy with what he's gone through in his career, right? Overcoming, I believe it was addiction and kind of where he's came from. He doesn't seem like he's in that mold character wise. I mean, it concerns me a little bit, but since he swapped agents to get Drew Rosenhaus in there, honestly, I could see them getting a deal done in the next week before they even play week one and it become a non-issue. But it's definitely, I mean, if it kind of lingers into the season, it's something that I would kind of look at, right? Because you imagine he goes out, gets a new agent. That means he's pressing the foot on the gas to get this deal done before they play week one. And that's his hopes. As I said, I mean, I would bet that it happens. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm overly concerned just because he doesn't seem like that type of person like you basically covered. But we'll see how it plays out, right? I mean, things always, they don't work out the way you would hope they work out. And then shit spirals, but I don't expect it. I expect them to get a deal done with him within the next 5 days. Shit could be quicker, to be honest. All right. Second question that I have for the Raiders is the secondary good enough, right? Nate Hobbs, Rock Ya-Sin, Amik Robertson. They have Trayvon Moehrig. I like him a lot. And then Jonathan Abram back there. He kind of made the bonehead play of the year, I believe it was last year, that had me cracking up. But they only had 6 interceptions last year as a secondary, right? And they had a pretty damn good pass rush with Max Crosby rolling last year, and I believe Yannick Ngakoue as well. So, I mean, does the secondary concern you back there? They're going against elite quarterbacks, Herbert, Wilson, Mahomes. If you go even further into the playoffs, you might run into Josh Allen. So does their secondary concern you? Is it good enough to compete in the AFC? Is it good enough to even compete in this division? As I mentioned, they only had 6 interceptions as a unit last year.
Yeah, so that is definitely the unit that really concerns me. I don't think it's good enough simply for the division they play in and the conference they play in. Having to go against those offenses, all those other great quarterbacks. And like you said, there's also Josh Allen outside of the division, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. So it's like, I really don't think it's good enough. I like their pass rush. I already mentioned they were 26 out of 32 in scoring defense last year. It's a big bend, don't break. And then it kind of flips the conversation to, do you think the Raiders can outscore those other offenses? And they have the weapons on paper to do so, but I don't think they could do that consistently throughout a season. And that's a lot to ask for on Derek Carr and that whole offense's shoulders. So yeah, that the secondary really does concern me. And I don't think they're good enough for the full season or a deep playoff run.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't even know if they're good enough for 4 weeks, let alone, I mean, 6 interceptions last year with a pass rush. That's pretty solid. Already before adding Chandler Jones. Yeah, I don't think the secondary is up to scratch when you're going to face the level of quarterback play that you're going to face. You name two other guys out of the division. I didn't name them, Lamar and Joe Burrow. If you face them again, obviously they faced Joe Burrow in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, they got to find a way. Some of these guys got to find a way to step up and take a little bit off the offense. It can't be all offense, all pass rush. The secondary, somebody out there is going to have to be able to step up, make a few plays, and they got to get more than 6 interceptions out of that unit back there. Will they do it? I can't sit here and say they will. I mean, maybe they scratch another interception. Who the hell knows? But yeah, the secondary depth is an issue, even to compete in their own division, let alone the AFC as a whole, I would say. And then Last question for the Raiders is obviously they addressed the defensive end position, right, to go out there and get the quarterback. Their interior defensive line, can they stop the run? Can they slow teams down, right? Because obviously the secondary is bad, but then when you have a bad interior defensive line, teams could just run the rock on you as well and kind of just beat you to death. Does their inside run stopping ability concern you entering 2022?
Yeah, it still does. They were like middle in the pack for stopping the run last year. Um, I just, I obviously can see the improvements. You had Chandler Jones, so like getting to the quarterback. I'm going to say it's going to be improved because I always give them the benefit of the doubt if it's off-season time or heading into a year, new players, new coaches. I always give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're going to be improved. But with that being said, like I don't think they'll be improved enough to where they're elite at it, or it's going to be a huge difference, especially with everything we just talked about the secondary. I still think this is overall the unit is going to be about the same, and it's going to be a lot bend don't break, and I think they're going to give up a lot of points.
Yeah, I think they're going to get gouged, to be honest. I don't like the defensive tackles. Chandler Jones doesn't address that. He addresses more just getting to the quarterback, which you had last year, and you still gave up a lot of points and got gouged. So, yeah, I mean, the secondary, the inside of the defensive line, it's kind of going to plague this team all year, I would say. I mean, teams are going to be able to have their way with this defense. If you kind of drop back too much, Max Crosby and Chandler Jones might be able to, cause enough havoc to win some ball games. I mean, obviously, I think the offense is good enough where they'll still be a good team. But when the secondary, and then you combine that with the interior of your D line, and they never really addressed it this offseason, they kind of went more offense, more pass rush. It does concern me depth wise, just overall your starting guys. I think their defensive line outside of the pass rush will get beat up along with their secondary this entire year. I mean, that's all I have for the Raiders. I mean, they're kind of exciting team. I want to see Josh McDaniels kind of, how he coaches this team. I want to see Derek Carr with Devontae Adams. Those two are buddies. See how that pans out. Obviously, Darren Waller will be out there with them. Hunter Renfrow was pretty good last year as well. Overall, they went 10-7 last year. I have them taking a step back, going 9-8 this year. Just a tough division. Tough conference, and they kind of didn't address enough on the defensive side of the ball to kind of make me comfortable to say they could even repeat another 10-win season. Secondary is not there, and interior D-line is not there. So 9-8 for the Raiders. They will be missing the playoffs in Josh McDaniels' first year.
Yeah, so I think that's a pretty good realistic expectation. I have them taking one step forward, going 11-6. I have them missing the playoffs because of just how good the division is. The 11 wins will be tough to get to. I got everybody in this division going 3-3 in the division, and that felt kind of even to me. But like, just tough schedule, bend don't break defense. I expect some pretty cool offensive moments. I think there's going to be certain drives where the Raiders look like the best offense in the league, just because I think they have so many weapons in the passing game. They're not going to be the best offense in the league. I just think they're that talented, but tough division, and 11-6. I got them finishing fourth in the division.
Got them 11-6, and he also snuck it in and said at the same time they're not going 11-6. But
it's tough.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I mean, as I said, I'm excited to watch Devontae Adams and Derek Carr, see how that kind of works out, because they both push for that so much. And now let's move on to the Los Angeles Chargers, a team that honestly, this whole division, I keep saying I'm excited to see these teams. These guys, I'm super excited. Obviously, they had a letdown season last year, kind of choked it up. Brandon Staley doing some questionable going for it on fourth down like a maniac. The run defense really wasn't great as well. We'll get into that. They went 9-8 in 2021. Obviously, they made some moves in the offseason, going out and bringing in Khalil Mack. They traded for Khalil Mack, and they go out and get JC Jackson as well, right? So when I talk about teams that kind of go address things, the Chargers sort of did that. They obviously still have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams on the outside, Joshua Palmer in the middle of the O-line. Pretty stout unit. They also get Gerald Everett. And then they obviously have Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler's back there, Isaiah Spiller. They drafted him. They just signed Sony Michel as well. Don't know how much he factors in, but the Chargers, it's a huge year, considering how it all played out last year. What do you see for the Chargers entering 2022? Big year. I love Justin Herbert. Just to make that clear, big Herbert guy.
Yeah, I love this Chargers team. Like, they look fantastic on paper. and I'm buying them, right? I picked them to win the division. They just scare me. Like they should have been in the playoffs last year. We have a coach that loves to go for it on fourth down. Their defense was one of the worst defenses in the league last year. I think they were tied for the third most points allowed given up and the third most rushing yards allowed. So you're talking about they can't stop the run. They are healthier on defense and they have a ton of studs around the ball. They had Khalil Mack, you got JC Jackson, Derwin James just got paid. You have Bosa still. It's like, I love this team on paper and I'm going to ride with them this year and I'm picking them, but they 100% make me super nervous because they tend to have a pattern of underperforming.
Yeah, they're another team that kind of you get guys that get hurt too. Joey Bosa has his injury issues. Derwin James obviously had his injury issues. Yeah, it just scares me. And then paying corners overall, especially you go pay a guy from the Belichick mold out in New England, bring in JC Jackson. It's like, is he going to live up to kind of that value? I mean, it's a wait and see thing on paper. Yeah, I love it. Right. You go spend the money while Herbert's on the rookie deal, go out and get a corner, build up that defense. But first question is who the running back, obviously Austin Eckler's there. Who's going to kind of take stranglehold of that second running back slot? Is it going to be Isaiah Spiller, who they drafted? Is Sony Michel? They bring him in kind of late in this preseason. Is he going to kind of sneak in and be that number 2 running back? Who do you think is going to kind of grab that number 2 running back role? Obviously, it's so big because you got a high usage guy like Austin Eckler. You figure there's an opportunity where he could get banged up, and you're going to need other guys to kind of show out and be that second option in the running game, even in the pass game for that offense.
This is a real concern for me when I look at the Chargers because Austin Eckler is obviously such a workhorse. He's kind of a smaller guy when it comes to NFL standards. I'm worried about him being healthy for the full year and the amount of the load he has to handle, right? Because he's going to have such a massive workload each week. And I think the Chargers felt the same. They had higher expectations from what I've read heading into training camp for Isaiah Spiller. He's been kind of disappointing from camp reports and for the other running backs. So it kind of seems like they don't want Austin Eckler on the field as much as he is. Like, yeah, he's great and the offense is clearly better with him on the field, but they're trying to save him for later down the road and not have such a big workload. But I think the other running backs from the reports have been disappointing so far. And I think it's going to be similar to we're seeing Austin Eckler have a really big workload. And I'm not sure who's really going to emerge. I thought it was going to be Isaiah Spiller. It hasn't really worked out. I think the Chargers aren't exactly happy with who's behind Eckler right now.
Yeah, I think they're definitely concerned for sure. So that's why I'm going to go. I'm going to say Sony Michel kind of becomes that second guy. There's a reason why. I mean, there's a reason teams bring in guys on a week's notice before the season starts after spending draft capital on a running back. They kind of did hope that Isaiah Spiller was going to be that second option behind Eckler. As you mentioned, he's a smaller back. They kind of used him to do it all, run game, pass game. So he gets hit, gets beat up a lot. And they're obviously not happy with how the Isaiah Spiller camp has how it's played out in his rookie preseason, I guess, first rookie camp. So I'm going to go with Sony Michel. He kind of, I don't know if he's going to be great, but he was kind of good enough for the Rams last year when he caught on with them, was able to grind out some yards. So I think Sony Michel is going to kind of steal that second running back slot straight from Isaiah Spiller. I don't know how good he'll be. I think it'll still be so much usage out of Eckler. And then obviously when you have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Gerald Everett, you got enough guys to where it's not going to be a ton of Sony Michel, but I think he will be the second option. It's just, I mean, it sucks. Spiller was solid at Texas A&M. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Maybe he kind of works his way back into the figure throughout the season, right? Going on, second question that I have about the Chargers is, did their run defense improve enough? They were the third worst last year. They gave up like 175 yards plus on the ground 3 times last year. And I think it was twice in the last 3 games where they gave up 175 on the ground, which ultimately, I mean, you could say that the going forward on the fourth downs kind of plagued the season and cost them. But I mean, when your run defense gets gouged that bad, that kind of costs you a playoff slot as well. So have they done enough? Is this another team? Have they done enough up front? They bring in Sebastian Joseph Day from the Rams, Austin Johnson. Have they done enough to improve their run defense?
On paper, it looks like they have. It's really hard for me to say yes with such confidence. I do like the Rams addition of Sebastian Joseph Day, Austin Johnson. Obviously, they had Khalil Mack. I still like Kenneth Murray a lot at inside linebacker. I like the defensive unit as a whole a lot. I'm gonna say that they're gonna be improved. I want to say yes because on paper it's just really hard because you're talking about not just improvement. You're talking about a full turnaround. You're talking about the third worst defense is stopping the run in the league, and now you're asking if they're going to actually flip fully. It's hard. It's hard to tell. Like on paper, yes, but it worries me.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a full turnaround. I mean, I think they'll be better just because it's that hard to be that bad. We say that so many times, right? It's that hard to be the third worst rush defense in the league. But I still think there'll be times where they get gouged and they can't stop the run still. And it'll make you question really people picking the Chargers. There's a lot of people picking the Chargers as preseason Super Bowl champions, right? And then a couple of weeks out of the season, it could even be the entire season where we kind of question, why are we picking this team? They can't stop the run. They can't stop the run. They go out and spend 80 million on a corner. They couldn't have went out and, get Ndamukong Suh, who's out there to kind of shore up your defensive tackle position. So it's just, those are questions to be asked. I don't think it's going to be a full turnaround, but I do think it'll be better than third worst as they performed last year. But I'll be interested, right? Because I'm pretty sure Ndamukong Suh is still out there. So, I mean, you got a question. He probably wants to be on a contender. Should the Chargers be calling? And then last question that I have about the Chargers is, what would you consider a successful season, right? There's so many people picking them preseason as Super Bowl champions. Is that ultimately what determines them having a successful season? Do you think them just getting into the playoffs in Staley's second year, or do they have to go on a deep playoff run to really call it a successful season? So what would you say is a successful season for the Chargers this year?
Well, the floor for them, the bar is set at making the playoffs. The way they barely missed the playoffs last year, they had some close losses. Year 3 of Herbert, they add all these players on defense, like big names, really good players. Offense is going to be one of the best in the leagues. Like, I think the bare minimum is for them to make the playoffs. I think it's hard for me to see them running this back how it is if they don't at least even make the playoffs. But for them to be successful, I think they expect like an AFC championship appearance. Like they need to win a playoff game or two. Like this roster is just so talented. They learned from last year. They have every piece really. Yeah, there's some weak points for sure. We'll see about the run defense, but the defensive unit as a whole is very good. It's all set up right now. So like the Chargers need to make the playoffs and win a game or two.
Yeah, you basically stole it right from me. I didn't know if you were going to say it as you were saying, just make the playoffs, get into the playoffs. I was like, no way he's going to say that's a successful season for the Chargers, just getting into the playoffs. Yeah, I'm with you. I think they at least need to win one, if not two playoff games, maybe make an AFC title push, right? I mean, we saw Joe Burrow in Cincinnati do it. I think that's kind of the hope that the Chargers have with Justin Herbert, is to at least make an AFC title game. But yeah, I'd be right on par with you that say they at least, they have to win one, if not two playoff games for them to sit down and be like, all right, damn, we had a good season. What do we do from here? I mean, what other piece are we one piece away? What do we have to add to this team for year 3 of Brandon Staley to really make a run at the Super Bowl? But yeah, I mean, you could ask Chargers fans and they say their expectations of Super Bowl, right? I mean, there is that much on this roster, that much talent on this team that, I mean, it could be argued. As I said, people are picking them as preseason Super Bowl champs. I'm not. I love the roster, but I'm not going that far. So when it's all said and done for the Chargers, I do have them making the playoffs. I think it'll be a good year. As I said, I'm a big Justin Herbert guy. I like him. Keenan Allen. He's kind of underrated stud wide receiver. Mike Williams as well is good. Austin Eckler back there. And then I love the addition of Khalil Mack. I don't know how JC Jackson will play out. And if Derwin James can stay healthy, they'll be pretty nasty. I had them going 11-6, so they'll be in the dance. We'll see how many games they can win, but I think it's a step up from last year. Obviously, they went 9-8 last year. Disappointing ending. I think they get over that hump and win 11 games.
Yeah, here's what scares me. I picked the Chargers to go 13-4 and win the division. If you made me pick, if they match up with the Chiefs in the playoffs, I would still pick the Chiefs, honestly, with Patrick Mahomes. But as of right now, I'm riding with the Chargers, and it just scares me because this team loves to underperform.
You can say 11-6. You can roll with me. I mean, you can ride with me.
I'm taking them. Division winners.
13-4. That's wild. I mean, it could happen. I just think, yeah, for me, it's a little too high. But let's move on to obviously the team that you mentioned that you said if they played them in the postseason, you would still be rolling with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, we saw how the first half of last year played. They were super weird. Everybody was down on them. And then the Chiefs kind of do their thing. They go off, they finish 12-5. They find their way into another AFC title game. And the rest is history. We kind of know how that played out. Obviously, Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy come back calling the offense, and then Steve Spagnuolo. So they keep their entire coaching trio. That's what I like a lot about Kansas City. I like the coaching, and then obviously like the quarterback. That tandem, they work very well together. Obviously, a wide receiver, Tyreek Hill, is now out. He subtract him, obviously sent to Miami. He got the bag, and then you slot in Marquez Valdez-Scantling from Green Bay and Juju Smith-Schuster. He'll probably get couple TikTok dances in before the game. They drafted Sky Moore as well. And then Mecole Hardman's there. I mean, I've kind of been saying, when is Mecole Hardman going to kind of do that thing? When is he going to take off? Are they going to be focused on getting the ball in his hands and letting his speed do his thing? We'll find out. Offensive line, stout unit with Orlando Brown, Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. That's a solid O-line. Travis Kelce's still there, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco. Ronald Jones figures to get cut at some point. I'd imagine he kind of fell out. Pacheco's a guy that I've heard kind of sliding up and could really slot himself into some snaps if Clyde Edwards-Helaire can't hold on. And then obviously on the defensive side of the ball, they still have Chris Jones. They still have Frank Clark, Willie Gay at linebacker, Nick Bolton at linebacker, two solid linebackers, Juan Thornhill. They did lose Honey Badger as well, but they replaced him with who? Younger Justin Reid. I love that pickup. It seems like these teams have unlimited money. They still have L'Jarius Sneed back there, and they draft Trent McDuffie as well. So they have everything cooking. They go 12-5 last year. What are you thinking about the Chiefs? And the first question that I have, I'll just drop it. Who's the number one wide receiver? Who's going to take over that number one wide receiver role with Tyreek gone? You can't take the cop out and say Travis Kelce, because obviously Travis Kelce is going to be a focal point. No, minus out Travis Kelce. Which one of these 3 or 4 guys at wide receiver becomes the number one target out of that group for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid?
Yeah, so in general, I'm high on the Chiefs again. Like always, I think there's no reason for them to slow down this year. They went 12-5 last year. We know their run. It's been all at least AFC championship appearances the last 4, maybe 5 years now. I don't remember, but I think they're going to keep up more of the excellence. I'm very high on the Chiefs. They have a very good team. Yeah, they lose. And this is why I think they're going to be very good for a very long time, Patriots-esque, is because they didn't pay Tyreek Hill. They got rid of him, used that money elsewhere, smart decisions. I'm sure they'd love to have Tyreek on the team still, obviously, but I thought that was a smart decision, a smart way to allocate money. And it brings me to the wide receiver question. I'm going to roll with Juju Smith-Schuster. I think we've seen him be an elite number 2 before. He's clearly not an elite number 1. He's not close to that. But the last time we saw him on the field with an elite guy that garners a ton of attention. Now, this is definitely different because it's a wide receiver compared to a tight end here. So it's definitely different. But we saw Juju operate without all the attention on him all the time, and he was pretty much stellar. He was very, very good. I think we could see Juju return to that form. Maybe not the same peak because he was damn good, but I think we're going to see a really good Juju Smith-Schuster. And outside of that, it's kind of hard to tell. Mecole Hardman, like you said, when is he going to pick it up? We're looking at year 4 for Mecole Hardman. In theory, I think he would. I mean, he's been there the whole time. He's got the speed, and then Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He worked with Aaron Rodgers for a long time. I mean, he could emerge, but I got to go the cop out. Got to go Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be something else, right? Juju comes in, slots himself in, and balls out. I'm gonna go with the guy that they paid the money to. I'm gonna go with Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I don't know why. He did just gas up Aaron Rodgers this week. He's playing with Patrick Mahomes and then comes out and says, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is the greatest quarterback. Yeah, I don't know about that, but I'm going to go with him. They paid him money. I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to look to get him the rock. Obviously, it could go completely sideways. And then obviously they still have Travis Kelce, but we're not using that cop out because I really think, I mean, both of us can agree that he will probably be the number one wide receiver hypothetically for them. But for this question, I'm going to go Valdez-Scantling. I do like the Juju Smith-Schuster, and I'm just wondering kind of how Sky Moore and Mecole Hardman work into this fold, because Mecole Hardman could be looking at another team next year if he kind of doesn't piece it together. And I'm kind of wondering if Andy Reid will kind of give him that shot now that he's really the only true burner in that offense. Now that you get Tyreek out of there, will Hardman get his shot? Who knows? I mean, Andy Andy, I don't know, he's a weird dude. He'll kind of do his thing, right? Bringing in two veterans when you bring in Juju and then you bring in Valdez-Scantling. It could be, hey, Hardman won't get any touches at all. But I like the fast dudes, right? I always say just get the ball in his hands, let him make somebody miss and go do something. They did that a lot with Tyreek, kind of went away from it last year. So it'll see, but I'm going with Valdez-Scantling. They paid him money. He's not getting $10 million a year to suck it up. But he could also very well suck it up. Question two that I have for the Chiefs. Were you going to say something?
No, I was going to simply Patrick Mahomes is going to end up just spreading the ball around a lot.
Probably. That's what I'm saying. It could also, it could also break down that none of these 3 or 4 guys become the number one. They just equally get spread the rock just because that's how the offense works out. Question 2 is, can Clyde Edwards-Helaire finally show that he's the number 1 back? He's kind of had a rocky couple of years with Kansas City. He's never really had a stranglehold on that number 1 running back slot, although he's been slotted in there. He kind of has injury issues and concerns. He's not the biggest running back ever. Can he kind of hold on to that number 1 slot, or will one of these other guys kind of slot in and steal that? Will Jerick McKinnon, since they can use him a lot in the pass game? Will Isaiah Pacheco, another guy, find his way to steal Clyde Edwards-Helaire's slot? Is he's kind of in a prove it year too. It's year 3. Teams usually don't pay running backs nowadays as it is. So he's kind of in a big spot where he has to do something, or he's another dude that could be looking for another team next year.
Yeah, I think unless he has a really big year, they're only going to bring him back on a reasonable contract. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been good, not great. I think for when he was drafted coming out of that LSU offense, we're expecting really big numbers, and he hasn't really lived up to that. He's a good running back. I do think he's going to stay the starter throughout the year simply because the people behind him are just not as good. Jerick McKinnon is very good. You can use him in a lot of different ways and get creative. But I don't think that's good enough to take the starting position, especially when you are coached by Andy Reid. Andy Reid, in turn, will just be creative to find a way to get them both on the field, get usage out of both of them. But I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the number 1 back throughout the season, and he'll have an okay year. It's just simply because, I don't think anyone behind him is that much better. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, unless he has a phenomenal season, I don't really see him being a Chief again unless he agrees to a pretty moderate contract.
Yeah, and I don't see Clyde Edwards-Helaire really having that great of a year, to be honest, either, just because I don't know how much they're going to run the rock. I think they maybe should try to, but yeah, I just don't see it, right? As you mentioned, everybody kind of gassed him off that LSU team. I just think that offense was that team was that damn good that it kind of made him look a lot better than he really was. And he's really, so we've kind of seen he's really not NFL fast. He was kind of, he had that burst at LSU, but the college speed, the NFL speed, I just haven't seen it since they drafted him. But yeah, I think he'll hold on to it just because he's kind of the guy that they can run into the ground, right? You're not going to run Jerick McKinnon into the ground. Isaiah Pacheco, you're not really going to run him into it. And Ronald Jones, I don't even know if he'll be on the team in 3 weeks. So yeah, I think Edwards-Helaire will hold on, but I don't think it's Andy Reid's not happy about it, right? He's not excited that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is his number 1 running back. It's just kind of the guy that they can, he's on a rookie deal. They can just run him as much whenever they want to run him, but they don't really expect much out of him. As I said, you hit the nail on the head, to be honest, when you said that the LSU hype really kind of built him up to somebody that he's not really, as we've seen the past 2 years. And that's if he stays healthy this whole year too. We can't even guarantee that, but I'm with you. I think he'll hold on to it, but not great year. But he kind of doesn't have to be great when you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, when you stand next to him. Last question that I have for the Chiefs. There's really not many for the Chiefs because, their roster is pretty damn good. The coaching's good. The front office is good. Everything's kind of there. Just last thing is, are you worried that they didn't get Orlando Brown locked up on a long-term deal this offseason? Patrick Mahomes would have kind of liked to see his guy that's covering his blind side locked up for the foreseeable future. They did not get a deal done. I believe he's on the franchise tag. He wanted a deal. He wanted a massive one. But are you concerned that they did not find a way to get it done?
I'm slightly concerned whenever a guy doesn't get his deal or he's not completely happy exactly what he wants. It's always a little concerning, right? I think the Kansas City Chiefs as an organization has done very well managing this team since Mahomes has got there, that they have earned the benefit of the doubt as an organization. I think they've earned that. So I'm putting my faith, as of right now, I'm putting my faith in the organization that it was the right move for the Chiefs in the long run down the stretch. We'll see what kind of contract he ends up getting. But it's definitely concerning because that's the dude protecting Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is everything. So yeah, slightly concerning, but I think the Chiefs have showed that they are managing their team very well the last few years, and they've earned the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, Orlando Brown's a weird dude as well, kind of the opposite of Darren Waller. When we asked that question about Darren Waller, are you concerned? It's a little bit concerning with Orlando Brown, obviously, because he kind of forced his way out of Baltimore. But along with Baltimore, the Chiefs, they're a fairly smart front office where they don't back themselves into corners with players. I think they'll eventually get a deal done with Orlando Brown, but it's going to kind of be on their terms. They're not going to let him kind of dictate how the negotiations go and what type of deal they're going to give him. But it's always concerning when a guy forces his way out of a good organization like Baltimore, goes here, and then you kind of see the same tendencies trending. But I trust the Chiefs, and I think that organization, they'll get a deal done, but they're going to get it done on their terms and not Orlando Brown's, because that's what the good teams do, right? The good teams don't go out there and throw money and back themselves into corners. We saw them not do it with Tyreek Hill. I think they go the other way with Orlando Brown just because it's that hard to get a left tackle like that compared to a wide receiver, but they're a smart team, smart organization. And that's kind of where I see it. So it's a little bit concerning, a little bit more concerning than the Darren Waller situation with the Raiders. And it's something to continue to watch how it plays out. I don't think he's going to let guys come in free and smoke Patrick Mahomes because he didn't get his money. Like it's the longest yard.
He does that once, he's done. It's Mahomes.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't think he's going to do all that, but I don't think he's going to get the money that he wants, or maybe the guaranteed money that he wants by the time they find a way to get a deal done. That being said, that's really all I have for the Chiefs. As I said, I mean, the Chiefs, as long as they have Mahomes, as long as they have Andy Reid, that duo, I mean, it's kind of, you slot them in, they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be a Super Bowl favorite. When I went through, they went 12-5 last year. I had them repeating that record. It's kind of hard for me to go above that just because I don't know what the offense is going to look like when it comes game one without Tyreek, right? He was such a big part of the offense. But it's, as I said, when you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Andy Reid, I'm going to give him 12 wins. I don't think it'll look as bad out of the gates as it did last year, where we were like, holy shit, they suck really bad. We don't even know if they're going to be, we don't even know if they're going to make the playoffs. I think it'll be, they'll look better, but same result, 12-5. And yeah, it's going to be another year where they're a Super Bowl contender when you get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I got them going 12-5. So Super Bowl contender. So that means not winning the division, but making the playoffs. And like I said earlier, Chargers win the division, but once again, the playoffs, you made me pick a team. I'm riding with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, which brings my final AFC teams. I'm riding Bills, Bengals, Chargers, Colts as division winners, with the Chiefs, Broncos, and Ravens sneaking into the playoffs. Which brings me to, this is the end of our preview. So I'm just going to throw this question at you. We didn't really talk about this prepared, but put you on the spot. Your two Super Bowl teams for this upcoming season are who?
Damn, he puts me on the spot. Didn't even think about it. We didn't even get to discuss kind of playoff maybe next week, but off the spot, I'm going to go AFC. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. They're kind of the team. I'm trusting Josh Allen. I like what they did, and I think they're out for revenge. I mean, they kind of, the way they lost last year, I think it left a bad taste in their mouth. So I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. NFC side, that's like way harder to choose with the NFC, because I don't think I think the Rams, like, they won it last year, but they don't feel like a repeat team, even a repeat team to even make it. Like, I could see them making the playoffs and getting bounced in the first game, to be honest. So I'm gonna go Tom Brady. Tom doesn't come back to not make the Super Bowl. He's coming back with a bad taste in his mouth as well. Obviously, the Matt Stafford bombed the Cooper Cup to seal the deal and knock them out of the playoffs. He came back, went on vacation. So yeah, I'm going Bills, Bucks, but I'm more confident in the Bills making it than I am the NFC side. The NFC side kind of feels like a true toss up, but I'm going with Tom Brady. I'm going with the GOAT.
Yeah, that's a really good response. Great answers. I'm there with you. The NFC side is really hard, but I'm going to just kind of go bias. I'm going to roll with the Niners. I'm going to say they make it back. The little uphill battle for them, but I'm going to go Niners, and then I'm right there with you with the Bills. The Bills feel like the best team in the AFC. I'm going Buffalo Niners as a early Super Bowl prediction heading into week 1 next week.
He's got Trey Lance, rookie year, I say rookie year, technical rookie year. He didn't play really at all last year, going to the Super Bowl. That's a bold one. That's a super That's very bold. Yeah, the NFC feels like a damn toss up. But I mean, as you mentioned, this is a wrap for the previews. 2022. These previews went super fast. To be honest, I think it's just kind of life's going fast. But it kind of rolled. I'm super excited. Next week is week 1. We'll kind of dive into some premier matchups in week 1. Obviously, we'll cover the Thursday night game because it's the big one, and then we'll kind of figure some other ones out to talk about as well heading in to week 1. But I mean, that's going to be a wrap for the AFC West preview and the 2022 division previews as a whole. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment. If you have any suggestions, add us on Twitter. Come talk shit to us on Twitter. Drop a comment, talk shit to us there too. I don't care. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter to me. As always, Spotify link will be in the description. If you're an audio only listener, go follow us on there. We upload simultaneously on YouTube and Spotify. And as always, we'll be back next week to talk the week 1 matchups.